Are we live? Are we live? I think we're live. We're doing it live, everybody. Good morning, whoever and wherever you are. I am going to be doing a reaction to the Armored Core 6 trailer that was released yesterday that I have not been able to watch yet. I am very excited for this game because I am a big fan of, From Software, the Soulsborne games, and way back in the day, like Armored Core was one of the first PlayStation games I remember playing. I've always enjoyed that series. Obviously, we haven't had a new one in a long time. I love customizing my mech, taking into battle and whatnot. It sounds like this is going to be a chip off the old block as far as Armored Core games go. So I'm expecting a lot of mech customization and plotting, like mechanical feeling gameplay. And yeah, I'm curious to see what lessons and what they bring forward from the previous from the Souls games, if anything. So let's give it a shot. Let's give it a look see, why don't we? This is going to be on the Xbox YouTube channel, where this is the Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon gameplay trailer. Space. The final frontier.
We're close to Rubicon. Wake the dog up.
Are we the dog?
Handler Walter verified. Activating cerebral coral control device.
Very cool environment. I love it. I'm curious is this going to be like open world, open zone? Are we going to be going from one place to another? Is it going to be, level based? Maybe? That's one thing I'm curious about. Let the cinders burn. I would love an open world, like, mech game. Armored Core style game. Obviously a little tougher because, of the scale of the mechs, but it would be cool if you could say you could get out of your mech and walk around as a person, even if like the combat is limited and it's mostly focused on maybe there's little puzzles or whatnot, or environmental stuff like platforming for you to do as a person. But anyway, that's not this game.
Augmented human C4621 has awakened.
This looks really good. Definitely looks like Armored Core. Using your boost to go fly around the map. That looks like a droideka from Star Wars. So that they have a lot of these, the Armored Cores, like the mechs, are very customizable, and usually what you're fighting is like you get parts from enemies and stuff like that, and you can customize your mech with parts you get and that kind of thing. I'm curious, like will we be able to make a rolly mech versus as opposed to like one that is on like treadmills, like a tank, or one that just walks around? Like how much can we customize? How diverse is everything? I'm surprised this game is coming out in August. By the way, I've already seen that it's coming out on August 25th. That's a quick turnaround considering Elden Ring was just last year, and this game was announced at the end of last year at the Game Awards. that's pretty quick. And we have Elden Ring on the way as well, DLC. So it definitely looks awesome. Like we haven't had a good mech game like this in a long time. Like there's obviously like strategy games and that sort of thing. But we haven't had like a proper like we control the mech and fly around an arena destroying enemies and that kind of thing in a long time. Especially one that looks really, really good. You know, high budget, high production value. And that's what this is. That's what we need in 2023. You know, a mech game that takes advantage of where we're at technology-wise. So we can see visuals and, you know, that kind of thing. You know, lots of lasers flying around the arena, and they look good.
One of the infamous handler Walter's hounds. Interesting. You ready to climb the wall?
Call sign Raven. Priority subject for termination. High on the list.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of
A coral response from the generator.
you know, a lot of previous games have been focused on mech versus mech, you know, 1v1 and that sort of thing. And I'm curious about the PvP in this game too, because that's usually a big part of Armored Core, is you know people making their mechs. And I remember one game had like AI. You build the mech and AI controlled them, and that seems like that was pretty cool. It'd be cool if you could do something like that in this. You know, the mobile
Watch
game
out.
or like on PSP.
Why hide behind another's call sign?
Like, I wonder if you'll be able to create a mech like that one, like one that flies. It looks way different than, you know, your typical bipedal weapon.
Why hide behind another's call sign?
Let's see how far they can fly. On borrowed wings.
Yep, looks good. It's, you know, to be expected from from Software at this point. It looks like an amazing video game. You know, it's crazy. It is probably going to be like a controversial statement, but it really feels like From Software is on just another level. From a lot of they push the industry forward. You know, that's how I feel. And there's only a handful of developers I would say, you know, really do that. You know, and maybe that's because of, you know, a lot of the industry chases trends, and that sort of thing. Not that From Software is completely immune to that. Obviously, they've made, you know, 3 Dark Souls and Elden Ring. That's pretty much Dark Souls 4, but it's still, you know, ahead of the game in my opinion. We're gonna look at this video as well. This is from IGN, and it seems like From Software has gone into more detail about what exactly to expect from Armored Core 6. So let's take a look. I want to look at this stuff. So.
Augmented human C4621 has awakened.
What's up, everyone? My name is Mitchell Saltzman, and today I'm joined remotely all the way from Japan by producer Yasunori Ogura to talk all about Armored Core 6. How are you?
Hi there, I'm great, thank you. I'm Yasunori Ogura from Software, producer on Armored Core 6. It's great to be here.
How long has Armored Core 6 been in development, and what has it been like for From Software to return to this franchise that was such a big part of the company for such a long time?
So we have been cultivating development staff through our experience with recent titles, and there were many members of staff, including Miyazaki and myself, who've wanted to make a new Armored Core game for a long time. So really, not making a new Armored Core was never really an option. It was a case of when rather than if. As to the game's direction and development, In around 2018, Miyazaki and some core members of the team began initial direction and forming the basic core concept of AC6. And after prototyping was complete, our director Yamamura took over on the project. However, as you know, we have several projects going on at the same time within the company, so we had to get an ideal allocation of resources. We had to get the right staff on board, which
This really does feel like a really quick turnaround for, especially with these days with budgets and, games being in development for, so long. This is, if it really started in 2018 and it wasn't even like in full development for a while after that, that's still only, 4 or 5 years of active development. And that's pretty crazy for games these days, especially, I suppose that's changed a little bit recently. I'm just thinking about, things like Final Fantasy 15 that was in development for a long time. And, Rockstar, who creates huge games, but they always take a long time. And Nintendo, it's been 2017 since, and we're just now getting, the follow-up to Breath of the Wild. We haven't seen a new Mario game since 2017, and on top of that, we also, it's not like From Software is only making Armored Core. They make so many other games as well. Elden Ring last year, and it wasn't too long before that we had, Sekiro and Dark Souls 3. So they come out, they're pretty much one of the more prolific AAA studios, I would say. Obviously there's other examples of like Call of Duty and that kind of thing that comes out regularly, but that's such a high quality instead of such a high bar. It's pretty crazy that they're doing so much in such little time.
Resulted in a slightly longer wait, but we're happy to finally bring a new Armored Core to our fans.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the story of Armored Core 6 and whether newcomers will be able to jump right into this entry if they haven't played any of the other ones?
This is a brand new story and has no direct link to previous titles. AC6 takes place in a future where interstellar travel is commonplace, not on Earth, but on a fictional planet in a distant star system called Rubicon 3. Rubicon is a devastated planet that was razed to ash in a great disaster caused by the outbreak of a mysterious new substance called coral.
Activating cerebral coral control device.
Which occurred half a century before the events of the game take place. At the outset of the game and the story, the player learns that coral, which was thought lost in this great disaster, has been rediscovered, and extraterrestrial corporate forces have begun an invasion race to acquire the rights to this mysterious and powerful new substance. So they are at conflict with the indigenous forces who are resisting their invasion on the planet Rubicon.
I do remember there's a lot of like invasion stuff and corporate politics and that kind of thing involved in Armored Core story in the past, and they seem to be carrying that forward. I wonder what side we're going to be on, because I feel like we usually get hired by like different corporations and whatnot in Armored Core. We're going to be invading, or if we're going to be like trying to fight back, or if it's going to be more complicated than that.
And
This environment looks super cool. Not this one. I mean that one was fine too.
Who are resisting their invasion.
I really like this. Just to look of it, I'm curious to like what kind of level this is going to be. If we're going to be like going across here, or if this is just part of the background
On the planet Rubicon.
Obviously, you
And
see
the
like there's water in the background.
As a lone independent mercenary and AC pilot, is thrust into this Rubicon war for coral. So although AC6 is a numbered title, the setting and story are completely new, and we believe it makes a great first entry into the series for...
I am curious about the decision to make this a numbered title, Armored Core 6, as opposed to Armored Core, like not necessarily a reboot, but a refresh of the brand. Especially considering, we have 3 Dark Souls games and we have Elden Ring, even though Elden Ring definitely carries forward a lot of the traditions from Dark Souls. Like, you could definitely even spin off from Armored Core and make a completely different, mech game with the same ideas and that kind of thing. So, which From Software has already done plenty of times. And even, Bloodborne is different in some aspects from Dark Souls, but it definitely carries that lineage. Even Sekiro's to a lesser degree, but it's still there. So I'm curious about why specifically they went with Armored Core 6 as opposed to just Armored Core or something else entirely.
Newcomers and old fans alike.
We're close to Rubicon. Wake the
Especially
dog up.
considering Armored Core itself has never been a huge franchise as far as, sales and that kind of thing. I do feel like From Software's name itself carries weight now, but I also feel like it could even benefit Armored Core to not be a numbered Armored Core title and just be something completely new. But like I said, I don't think it'll matter all that much, especially because the Armored Core franchise has been around since the PlayStation era. That's almost 30 years ago at this point, and there are plenty of people who are much younger than 30, much younger than me, who are definitely From Software fans now, might not be aware of Armored Core as a property even. So to say it's Armored Core 6, it kind of tells people, makes people wary to jump into a new franchise, I think. Like, I guess some franchises have avoided that, like like Final Fantasy. They seem to be able to get new fans with each new entry, but obviously Final Fantasy isn't connected in any way to one another. And Persona does the same thing. Persona's been around for a long time as well, so I guess not that big of a deal. It just depends on how From Software markets this game.
So let's talk a little bit about Rubicon as a setting. Is there anything that's unique about the planet that will allow for kind of unique mission structures that people haven't seen in the Armored Core series previously?
There are two things we'd like to convey to both newcomers and old hands to the series. Armored Core offers two unique game experiences. First is this dynamic, three-dimensional action that can only be achieved with mechs. And the second is the ability to customize your own personal AC by combining multiple parts and decorating it to your liking with painting and decals and the like. So these player-assembled, player-controlled ACs are able to fly freely through the air and handle multiple weapons simultaneously and turn on a dime, dash in different directions at once. This makes for dynamic and very aggressive combat.
This definitely seems more fast-paced than Armored Core tends to be. That's probably due in some part to the better technology these days. They can more properly convey exactly what they want from these games, because I remember them being more plotting, even when you're boosting around and that kind of thing. They're kind of they feel kind of slow, which is Dark Souls and From Software combat always feels deliberate, and I would still not call it deliberate rather than slow. Where your controls do exactly what they are meant to do. When you push a stick, it goes forward, and there's not much drift or anything like that in your controls. So I'm definitely this definitely seems to be carrying some of that, but also more fast-paced. Like you're zipping around the arena rather than like your boost kind of like making you go a little bit faster.
Style that makes full use of the three-dimensional space.
And that definitely seemed different as well. There's always been melee, but it's usually just laser beam or like a beam sword or something like that. This seems more like
that makes full use.
You're actually like jumping and doing a kick or something like that.
The three-dimensional space, and we feel that this has always been an appeal of the Armored Core series and is an appeal of the mech action genre.
For die-hard Armored Core fans, what are the elements of Armored Core 6 that those hardcore fans are going to find appealing about this game?
With AC6, one area we focused on was to make sure that the customization aspect is not just about parameters going up and down and numerical values changing, but how these changes are reflected in the feel of the action as much as possible. In particular, the leg parts, which control the AC's movement, you might have a tank-type legs that can perform drift turns, and this changes the very basic behavior and traversal type of the AC. We also made sure that the behavior of weapons, such as the way they shoot, how they recoil, how their projectiles behave. We tried to make sure that this all makes a big difference in how the game feels and plays.
I like
So,
that.
speaking-
I like there's a more, you feel the gameplay changing as you change and customize your mech, which was a little bit of an issue I had with previous games where a lot of the differences between weapons felt more, based on like maybe you'll do a little more damage with this weapon as opposed to that weapon. And this feels more like a completely different, a firing rate might be different, or you might have a spread for one weapon as opposed to another. And like he was saying, the delays will make your movement will be different in some way, which is pretty cool.
Speaking a little bit about that customization, Armored Core games have a bit of a reputation for being very complex, with many stats to consider, parts to swap in and out. Is there anything else that you guys are planning on doing with Armored Core 6 to make it a little more approachable for newcomers who might not be used to that level of complexity?
As you mentioned, Armored Core has always been a game with many parameters and is a game where you can enjoy the complexity and depth it offers, but we feel it's also a game where you can enjoy simply by assembling your AC without thinking too deeply about it, and adjust the appearance to your liking and simply get out there and pilot it and take it into combat. That said, in regard to new players, we've taken careful steps with the onboarding and level design in the early stages of the game, so that players can deepen their understanding step by step, little by little.
Sounds like basically as far as deep into the customization as you want. Like it would be interesting if they have basic, presets for, for you to take just on a mission or something like that, or you can get into more in-depth customization of your mech and all that, which would be cool.
And work their way into that fun of the more complex parts. We've also prepared a training simulator.
Although at the same time, Elden Ring specifically, and Dark Souls to a lesser degree, also had a lot of customization and moving parts as far as like parameters and that kind of thing. Like you have armor that will make you beefier, but you can't move as quickly and that kind of thing. So it's not like people who play from software games are, they aren't used to this sort of customization in their game. So it's part of the Souls experience to be able to customize your character, even though Sekiro and Bloodborne are lesser to a lesser degree than Dark Souls. But if you play Dark Souls, you play Elden Ring, then you're probably used to in-depth customization of your character,
where the player can learn the basics of action and assembly using sample ACs. And we've also tried to make the controls more intuitive, so that we hope that those who have no experience with the series will feel free to enter and enjoy the feel of piloting their very own Armored Core.
Are there any lessons that you guys have learned over the many years you've spent developing the Souls games that you take into the development of Armored Core 6, even though they're kind of two very different genres?
Armored Core 6 is an attempt to take both the knowledge and experience gained from the development of our previous titles and combine it with the fun of mech customization that the AC series has always embraced. And in this sense, we hope to create a new mech action game that is worthy of modern From Software standards. Specifically, we're developing this game with an awareness of the things that From Software has always embraced in its other action games, such as a intricate map structure, combat design that allows players to deal with enemies by carefully observing their movements, and the ability to overcome challenging situations with ingenuity and creativity. These are all, of course, things we've kept in mind with AC6 as well.
That makes me, specifically the level design remark he made, because, usually Armored Core, many mech games are flat plains for the most part. You have hills and that kind of thing, but for the most part, in terms of level design, it's very flat because you're pretty much, 1v1ing and trying to outmaneuver each other. If Armored Core can retain some of the identity of map design from other From Software games, that would be really cool to see how that is implemented with the scale of Armored Core. So yeah, that's cool. It seems like they are taking kind of a more deliberate approach to the combat from, say, Elden Ring and Dark Souls and applying it to Armored Core, which is pretty much all you want from a From Software game. And
Well, However, as you mentioned, the basic format and genre of Armored Core is completely different from games in, for instance, the Souls lineage. So there are no aspects of the game mechanics or gameplay that can be directly observed.
You ready to climb the wall?
Can you talk a little bit about your goals with the combat design, and are there any kind of mechanics that players should know about that perhaps didn't exist in previous Armored Core games?
In terms of points we focused on this time around, I would say that individuality of the melee weapons is one of the key points. Armored Core is mainly a shooting game at heart, and that's exactly why we had this policy of having more unique melee weapons this time around. So in addition to the well-known pile bunker and the cluster bomb launcher that you might have seen in the trailer, there are also a variety of weapons with different animations and more.
That's very cool, like a long whip and that kind of thing. That might be a way they can, take Souls style gameplay and implement it in Armored Core with a more heavy focus on melee. But also melee should only be an alternative to, something you use every once in a while. It's powerful, but something you don't necessarily always have all the time, I think, in Armored Core, because it is very, range focus. But we'll see how it's implemented.
Unconventional characteristics, such as a chainsaw and a laser lance, and things like this. In the trailer, you may have.
I've wanted a Space Souls games for a long time, and Armored Core is close enough to that experience for me, I think.
Also seen a part where the core is deployed by an AC to generate a shockwave, and the pile bunker is then used against an opponent who is reeling back from this shockwave. This kind of building combos with multiple weapons aspect is an appeal of AC6's unique assembly and combat, and we hope the players will enjoy using their creativity and asking themselves, what combination of weapons can I use to create my ideal combo attacks and secure victory?
So is there any one new thing, whether it's a mechanic or a mech part or a weapon, that you're particularly proud of and are excited for players to experience in Armored Core 6?
I'd like players to mostly look forward to something we touched on earlier, which is this using their ingenuity and creativity to create a combination of their own making, and a combination of the various parts and weapons at their disposal. So for example, they might be dashing across the battlefield while shooting ballistic weapons and letting missiles fly in every which direction. These missiles will connect with their enemy, knock them off balance, and then they'll use their assault boost to dash in with a quick burst of speed and finish with a melee strike. This kind of player-created combo and their own unique combination of weaponry and mobility will allow for this new aggressive, offensive style of AC combat, and we hope this is something that reinvigorates the series and that new and old fans alike can enjoy.
Multiplayer has always been a big part of the Armored Core series. Is there anything you can tell us about multiplayer in Armored Core 6?
So I believe ACV was more focused on multiplayer as the last title in the series, but first of all, the main content of AC6 is positioned as a single-player campaign mode where you progress through a more traditional mission structure. There will be an online PvP mode where players can compete against each other with ACs they have built and share their AC data and emblems of their own making with other users. But first and foremost, the story missions in AC6 are single player only. We would like players to go in there, become the lone mercenary lifestyle, and enjoy this aspect of the game first and foremost. We do hope to share more details about the online aspect at a later date, so please stay tuned.
So it sounds like he focused on PvP, but he also said the story missions in the game are going to be single player. So I'm wondering if there's going to be alternative missions where you can actually co-op with people, which I think that's what it sounds like to me. Anyway, that's it for this one. Yeah, Armored Core 6. I'm jazzed about. It's probably, it's hard to say exactly where. I don't even think I put it on my ranking because at the moment it didn't have a release date. But it would be S tier as far as like hype ranking for games this year. What do you think of Armored Core 6? Are you hyped for it? Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube check out my YouTube videos on youtube.com/lowskillplays. And I'll be back tomorrow. I think me and Crow are going to continue our The Last of Us playthrough. And maybe we'll see how far we get. We're close. We're like in the latter half of that game at this point. And if we also have we started playing Elden Ring together, and Crow has never played Elden Ring before, so we're doing that as well now. The co-op mod is very cool, and I'm excited to see how she enjoys that game as we continue. So, you follow me on, follow my Twitch, follow me on YouTube, follow my TikTok, which is also Low Skill Plays. And until next time, this has been Low Skill Plays on Armored Core 6. Ciao.